I almost want to say good morning because it's morning time while I'm doing this. All right, my name is Sheila. Welcome. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Jennifer Shah case and the victims. Too many times we hear everything about the person who has been convicted of the crime or alleged to have committed a crime. We want to know their motive, what drove them to do this, what they did, what the timeline looked like, who else was involved, how much money it was. You know, Sometimes I think we don't spend enough time talking about the victims. Yeah. I'm going to delve right into this and head over to the memo. And we're going to be looking at the government's memo on this, as you see there. And this was the government's sentencing memo that was provided to the court. 22 pages. We're not going to be diving down into 22 pages. I'm breaking this up because I really want to focus on the victims here. So you have this opening part where, the government was writing this in advance of the sentencing that was scheduled at this time. All of that has taken place. But I want to scroll down to, I think it's page 12, because really, that's really what this is all about. The people who were hurt by the actions that took place. And so we get down to here where we talk about impact on the victims. And so it says the defendant's conduct had a devastating impact on thousands of victims. And then down here it says, after they talk about this other case, the government attaches here to 5 victim impact statements provided by individuals who were victimized directly by MPG, the defendant's telemarketing sales floor, and a letter from a representative for another victim that was found on the defendant's cell phone. All right, victim 1. Victim 1 is a widow in her mid-70s and was prepared to travel from California to New York to testify at the defendant's trial. In her statement, she describes how she was misled and abused by the defendant's salespeople and other participants in the business opportunity scheme. She explains that the mental anguish is still with me today, and the guilt I harbor from being so vulnerable and easy prey to such sharks still swim in my mind. She asks that the punishment fit the crime. The defendant was personally and directly involved in defrauding victim 1. On February 21st, 2018, the defendant was informed about the fraudulent sale as it was occurring and personally approved splitting the sale across multiple credit cards because victim 1's credit limits were too low for the amount the salesperson was charging for bogus products and services. When the defendant's salesperson texts the defendant that he had convinced victim 1 to pay more than a typical sale, nearly $10,000, and added, "She's laughing and excited, and I think she's in love with me, LOL." The defendant responded callously. "If she's in love with you, then you better make sure she loves you for at least 16 weeks so she doesn't charge back, LOL." The defendant then doubled down. "Close this lady, solid, send a selfie, whatever you need to do so she stays in love with you, LOL." On April 3rd, 2018, the defendant was informed that victim 1 had attempted to charge back on her original purchase and that one of the defendant's employees was concerned she may try to charge back on an upsell for $29.95 that was made by MPG thereafter. The following day, on April 4th, 2018, the defendant was consulted about what to do in light of victim 1's attempt to charge back through her credit card company after discovering that she was defrauded. The defendant instructed co-conspirators to try to convince victim 1 not to charge back, or if needed, provide her with a partial refund to avoid the chargeback. Okay, so let's talk about victim 1 here. Typical sales pressure tactics that you see going on here. And let me just look at this as I am talking about. So first of all, she's in her mid 70s. She's in her mid 70s, and she was gonna, had there been a trial, she was prepared to come from California to New York. So that gives you some idea of how important that she felt this was for her to testify and travel to get this done. And and you see this sort of background conversation between Jennifer Shah and one of her salespeople about, oh, she's falling in love with me. Make sure you close the sale, and then sort of make sure you keep her attention and stay engaged so that she doesn't charge back. And they were really concerned about that happening. Well, here's the thing. If you have a good product and a good service, and you're providing the product and service that the person paid for, and that you haven't sold them some idea of one thing and then it's really something else, if you've done what you're supposed to do, then most of the time you don't have to worry about a chargeback when you still haven't even finished the sale. I mean, that right there should tell you that they knew that there was a high propensity or likelihood that this woman was going to charge back once she sort of got away from, the salesperson that she was falling in love with. And she was probably going to come back to her senses and say, wait a minute, I'm 70 something years old. I'm investing all of this money into a quote business opportunity when, do I have the money for that? Do I have the time to commit to this? Am I entering, another stage in my life where I want to be scaling back? Does it make sense for me to do this? She may start asking all of these questions and then decide she doesn't want it. So yeah, you can't read this and not think that they had to have some idea, because they're already talking about the chargeback, before everything is even done. She's saying, close the deal, close this lady. So it's not even closed, and they're already, worried about this. Yeah, it does tell you that they had some sense of what was going on there. All right, so let's head back over and look at victim 2. Victim 2 is a widow in her mid 70s and was prepared to travel from North Carolina to testify at the defendant's trial. In her statement, she describes how the defendant's sales floor and others participating in the scheme defrauded her of approximately $40,000, more than half of her life savings. Victim 2 explains that, like her, each person scammed has their own story with a dream of a better retirement and life, which was taken away when they were coerced to give their money for false promises. She asked that the court judgment carry the same hardships the defendant has caused her victims. Says the defendant was involved in defrauding victim 2. On February 18, 2018, after victim 2 had attempted to cancel her purchases upon realizing that she had been defrauded, the defendant's salesperson reached out to defendant and Smith. Stu and Jen, I've been blowing up victim 2, a VSM lead, for the last week, but there's a problem with her phone. I emailed her with no response. Can we contact the coaching team to let her know she has to speak with me to cancel? We brought her on board in September. By the way, her canceling is total bullshit. The purpose of forcing victim 2 to speak with the salesperson was to give the salesperson an opportunity to persuade victim 2 into recanting her cancellation request in an effort to permit the defendant's company to retain victim 2's money. Smith responded to the salesperson and the defendant. Yes, we, i.e. the defendant and Smith, will coordinate with them for sure. Again, let's talk a little bit more about this defendant. And this is exactly what I am talking about here, where you have people, saying just as she said here, she's thinking about how can, I'm reaching a certain stage in life now. I am in my mid 70s and I want to have a better retirement. A lot of times, and it sounds like, and let me just look at this because it sounds like, this is another woman. When you look at statistics, women tend to have lower income at retirement than men do. And so you have a woman who sounds like she may be in this predicament and saying, how can I have a better life for myself? Like, I'm still willing to work to pull together that life that I want. I want to be economically secure. I want to be able to take care of any health conditions that may come up. And so she's investing all of this money, approximately $40,000, $40,000. And it says half of her life savings, half of it gone, defrauded, and taken away from her. And when she tries to get it back, they are trying to make her jump through hoops to even get it back. All right, so let's go on to victim 3 here to see what victim 3 says. All right, victim 3. Victim 3 is a 60-year-old woman and was prepared to travel from Nevada to testify at defendant's trial. In her statement, she describes how she was defrauded out of approximately $35,000. She also explains that she is still years later trying to pay off the credit card debt she incurred from the scheme, and describes the heartbreaking mental and physical toll that her victimization has brought upon her. She asks that the defendant be given the maximum prison sentence allowed by law. All right. The defendant was personally and directly involved in defrauding victim 3. On December 23, 2017, the defendant passed along a message from a co-conspirator to Smith explaining that although victim 3 did not yet officially cancel, she had voiced her concerns to our fulfillment department over the investments and said she may consider canceling. The defendant instructed Smith and certain of her employees to have victim 3 called by another one of her employees for the purpose of persuading victim 3 not to cancel, despite having been defrauded. Specifically, the defendant told one employee that a co-conspirator is having another co-conspirator reach out now and I'll keep you posted. Smith then sent a screenshot of a text message exchange between co-conspirators regarding victim 3, who was contacted at the defendant's direction, explaining that the co-conspirator was able to reach her and that victim 3 is just super nervous because she said she spent 30 grand total on this program so far. The co-conspirator who spoke with victim 3 helped her out, but she did ask for a breakdown of what she paid the sales floor to be sure she knows exactly what she bought and we will be doing for her. The defendant then sent that screenshot to one of her employees. So this is a little different because I want to talk about something that's a little different here with this one. And the question sometimes is, you're spending all this money, but what are you getting? What are you getting? And the reason this one sort of hits me is because I had a contract with, I'll say, a business services company to do some stuff. And I have been totally floored at how much I paid them and how little I got back in return. And, you know, I hate to call them all scammers, but I cannot help but feel that they exaggerate, they overpromise, they exaggerate, they tell you all these things, and then you only find out when you get in there exactly what it is that you're getting, and you realize that you have really truly overpaid for what they're giving you. I mean, it really and truly is a ripoff. So I totally understand what she's talking about with this, and I can think of some other products out there that I have checked into, and most of them fall within the same category. There are a few that I've seen that actually break down a process. Here's what we need to do. We'll walk you through it. We'll provide templates. We'll do this. We'll do that. And the problem I had with that particular one is they kept trying to upsell. Like before you could get through level 1, they were already trying to sell you something else. And it was interesting to see, because they had a Facebook group, it was interesting to see how many people like hadn't even finished the first program and were jumping already to pay more. And I was just sort of like, you people have got to be kidding me, because part of the reason and this was something, it was one of those low cost things. And so there's a whole trick to this whole thing. If you guys have not been following some of these schemes, they sell you with the low product. And here's the thing, the initial low product is a great product. Like I felt like it was a really good product. It provided more value than what I paid for it. So I'm not saying that the initial product was bad. It was the upsell and the products that came after that before you even had a chance to like finish using and doing the initial part of it. And so that's the piece that bothers me, this sort of upsell where you're trying to get people to now spend hundreds and then thousands. That's the piece that concerns me, where you're bringing people in and you're actually providing great value and a service and a product. I'm all for it. And I've seen tons of businesses do that at the lower end. But it's this $35,000. What exactly are you getting? When are you going to be getting it? And who is going to be giving it to you? Those are all questions. And so she spent $35,000. And I would question too, what exactly am I getting for $35,000? It would be one of those things where you would want to go back to the contract and look at it and see exactly what it said. Maybe I'll hunt that down and see if I can find that. All right, so let's go on to the next victim, because remember, we've got 5 victims here. Victim 4. Victim 4 explains that she lost over $100,000 due to her victimization by the Business Opportunity Scheme. She describes the terrible emotional, mental, physical, and financial anguish she has suffered due to the financial devastation visited upon her by the defendant and her co-conspirators. It's an everyday struggle and an everyday worry, wondering where victim 4 is going to get money for the next set of bills that need to be paid and the food and shelter victim 4 and her family need to survive, as well as providing care for victim 4's critically ill husband and a 90-year-old father who is also critically ill, and both need victim 4 to help provide for them financially. Victim 4 addresses the defendant directly. The burden you have caused me is overwhelming. I can't even really put words to the amount of anguish you have caused. All right, so that was there are actually 6. Okay, so victim 4. And here's the other thing. $100,000 is a lot of money. And I think part of the reason the government has included this is not just because it's an amount of money here, but there are other people involved. So this is a person who is having to take care of family members. And, you're talking about a father who's probably retired, who needs care and medical bills associated with that. And you're talking about a husband. And so you're looking for economic stability and a way to continue to, cover bills and things that you need on a daily basis. Like, she isn't even talking about, I want to take lavish trips. She's talking about what her personal family needs are, and that she's just been devastated by what has happened here. And so again, you have people that were so focused on making money for themselves that they didn't stop to think about the harm that they were causing to other people. All right, so let's look at victim 5 is pretty short, so maybe we'll just look at victim 5 and victim 6 together here. So victim 5 says, victim 5 explains that she was pushed by the defendant's employees and her co-conspirators into approximately $30,000 of debt. Victim 5, who suffers from several serious health conditions, ultimately became homeless. Victim 5 concludes, I could go on and on, but the point is, as a result of defendant and her co-conspirators' conduct, I have the problem of faith and trust. Of course she does. Of course. Now, this sort of idea that $30,000 of debt. And so let me talk about it from a debt perspective, because some people are thinking, that this is an investment. How many times do you say, I'm going to go back to school? I'm going to take some courses, whether they are, college courses, community college courses, trade courses, courses online. I'm going to continue along this path of personal and professional development, so that because here's what people are trying to do. They're trying to increase financial stability for their family, for themselves. And now you have this person saying, who, says that this was $30,000 of debt. And so this was not money this person just had hanging out in a bank account somewhere. This person went into debt in order to try to reach this place of economic stability. And I could go on and on about the state of jobs in our economy and the system that's set up to keep people struggling. But that's a whole nother video. You have people who were trying to, invest in personal and professional development, in order to increase their income and provide economic stability for their families, only to, not get what they needed or should have gotten, and to be defrauded, and to now, as this woman says, to be homeless. So forget money that, that I lost and can't get back from retirement. You're talking about where somebody lives and whether or not they're going to have a roof over their head at night. So another totally different circumstance. I think that's why the government included it. And then last one is victim 6. Victim 6 is a 77-year-old woman who was prepared to travel from California to testify at defendant's trial. The defendant's cell phone contained a copy of a letter that a pro bono attorney sent to one of the defendant's co-conspirators on June 9, 2016, describing how victim 6 was defrauded. Victim 6 took extensive steps with the help of the pro bono attorney to get approximately $8,000 of her hard-earned money back, but was never able to do so. On one occasion, victim 6 expressed appreciation to the government for contacting her because she was upset about what the business opportunity scheme had done to senior citizens. And here's the thing about this last one too. It's like, okay, so I'm not just going to try on my own, but I'm going to get a pro bono attorney to help me try to get some of my money back. And attorneys do pro bono work, but they also need to get paid. So you have this attorney who's doing pro bono work on her behalf. And usually by the time people get to an attorney, they've already tried to resolve it themselves. They've already tried to go through whatever dispute process may be available. They've already looked at the contract and followed whatever guidelines or rules it says in the contract. Hey, if you do A by this date and let us know, we'll give you X amount back. We'll do a refund. So, in this case, the person, says, I'm going to go to an attorney, because usually, getting some help from an attorney will get the other party to do something. And in this case, absolutely nothing. So now we got these victim statements. So where do we go with this? Okay, because we can't continue to have this situation where these business schemes are being offered and all we continue to see is victim after victim after victim. Now, in some cases, there may be some states that have laws that say things like, in a situation like this, the person gets 3 days to, review the contract. The contract has to be in writing and they can cancel at that time. But given what we're seeing, given the kind of fraud that we're seeing, I think it's time for us to do something different. And it may be time, especially, for the Federal Trade Commission to take a look at all of this that's going on, and to work with Congress to sort of say, okay, we need to have some guidelines around these business opportunity schemes because of the amount of fraud that's been going on, and there needs to be more regulation around it. I hate to say it, I hate to say this, that we need to have the government step in every single time, but in this case, when I see this kind of fraud going on and these kinds of people being hurt, I think there does need to be a look at what kind of legislation might need to be in place. And it may be something as simple as providing more of an opportunity for people to review the contract and for there to be a refund policy that's based on the services that have been provided and the services that have not been provided. It can't just be that people go to jail, spend time in jail, and then the judge is trying to figure out what the restitution is going to be, and these people are not sure, when and if they're ever going to get that money. This needs to be an upfront sort of situation where clients by law have the right to be able to say, if you're not giving it back, then I have other options. And that's not to say they can't go to court, okay? Because, any of these could have said, I'm going to, file a breach of contract case in court. And that could have been the start of some of this. So it just sort of depends, but we need to sort of pin down and put, I think, some more guidance out there, some more protections for consumers. And that's all I'm saying. You may agree or disagree, but when I read these kinds of statements, it tells me that there's something going on. I'm looking at the Chrisley case, I'm looking at this case, and yeah, how do we protect people? And not everybody has the means to hire an attorney to file a lawsuit and do a breach of contract case. So maybe there needs to be some other things that are required in the contract for these kinds of cases. That's it. That was a lot. We got to hear from the victims through the government's sentencing memo for Jennifer Shah. So if you learned a little bit more about this, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Peace.